Well, last week we introduced you to a family forced out of their home after a pair of so-called squatters took over.
They told us that they offered the couple room to stay for the night. That was 3 weeks ago, and the alleged squatters, well, they're still there.
They are. Now our Jeff Vallon is hearing the other side of the story tonight, taking a closer look and talking directly to the alleged trespassers.
And the cops said they can't do anything about it.
That was November 19th, when Fred Pettit and Christina Evernham moved out of their apartment in Ortega, claiming some acquaintances who'd asked to stay for one night refused to leave 2 weeks later. But that couple, Ashley Scott and Matt Dean, are responding, and they say the agreement wasn't so informal.
They asked me to move in a few months back, and I told them that I couldn't.
Ashley Scott says the people who rent the apartment asked again more recently, and this time she and Dean accepted moving in about November 5th.
We had decided I would pay them $50 a week and provide my own food, etc.
An agreement Scott acknowledges was not made in writing, but via text.
So that was going to catch them up on their rent is all it was.
Something real estate lawyer Zach Roth believes might be binding.
If you were talking about something that arose to the level of you can stay here for this amount of time, for this much money, and you pay on this time, then maybe.
Meantime, the landlord, who spoke with us off camera, says he was in the process of possibly evicting Pettit and Evernham for unpaid rent. And perhaps an ironic twist, their names are still on the lease despite that possible eviction and that they've already left. All while the landlord tells us he's made a written agreement allowing Scott and Dean to stay until December 4th.
He just lets them stay there till December and decides to get rid of us. I just think it's just not, it's ridiculous.
Ridiculous or not, Roth cautioned it could be seen as an overlap, more or less renting the same property to two parties at the same time. He also offered advice last week that just might apply to everyone involved.
I definitely wouldn't let somebody stay overnight that you're not comfortable with what may happen.
In Jacksonville, Jeff Vallon, First Coast News, on your side.